Key issues affecting site selection. Well, joining us to speak about that is Tim Feemster, Senior Managing Director at Newmark Grubb Knight Frank. Tim, welcome.
Thank you, Russell.
Tim, when you look at the logistics trends that drive site selection, what do you think they are going to be down the road?
Several are really kind of rise to the top all the time. One of them is the cost of transportation, basically driven by fuel and oil prices. We've seen that go up and down over the past few years. It's only gone down once, but mainly up, and it continues to rise. We're actually, and so that's one of the big ones. The second one would be managing risk in the supply chain. They're very long today compared to the past. So they're thousands of miles. They include multiple modes. So the risk of supply chain interruption affects the networks. And just the way the product moves through the country and around through the Panama Canal even has started to affect how networks are put together.
You know, when you talk about these long, extended supply chains, there is this cost, as you say, that is that's a part of that, a component of those supply chains. What are the economic factors that are important to logisticians?
There really are five big ones. The first one being cost of transportation. Studies are done every year about supply chain costs, and those are over 50% on a consistent basis. Over 50% of the cost of a typical company's supply chain is transportation. Inventory management or inventory carrying costs would be next at about 22. Then labor is third, and that's typically around 15 to 17%, depending on whether it's distribution or manufacturing. It's higher in a manufacturing environment. And rent, for instance, is only around 4 to 5%. So those are the real main things that people look at from a cost perspective.
You know, if you and I had been talking to each other 2-3 weeks ago, cost of fuel would have been one thing. It's something else today. It's either up or it's down. But the reality is right now the cost of fuel is very high. Factoring that into a logistics network, et cetera, is something that logisticians need to be on top of. Let's talk about the cost of fuel and how it's impacting these transportation networks.
Obviously, as I just said, a big element in the total cost structure. So the logisticians are in a position to try to mitigate that impact on their overall cost. So they're moving into lower cost modes. That be it, they're running all water to the East Coast instead of bringing product across by rail from the West Coast. That is a lower cost to them. And they're also converting truck to intermodal because that is a lower cost than intermodal is a lower cost than truck. And so anytime you get now a haul of over 500 miles, most of the major trucking companies, even like Hunt or Schneider or Warner or Swift, are actually bringing you a domestic container to load rather than a truck so that they can actually put it on the rails and move it long distances.
Another issue I wanted to explore with you is e-commerce. Now, clearly that is something that is here to stay. Online shopping and that sort of thing is clearly here to stay. How is that affecting the logistics side of things?
Well, it's affecting the logistics because it's the change between the percentage of product that's moved to the consumer through brick and mortar versus that through e-commerce is now changing. So brick and mortar is coming down and e-commerce is going up. There was a study that I saw just the other day that today 91% of retail sales come out of brick and mortar facilities. They're expecting that to drop to 76% in 5 years. But the reason that's important is because those facilities that fulfill that demand are different. The e-fulfillment facility is very much an individual piece pack facility, very low number of units per order. You know, it's typically less than 5 units an order. Sometimes to people it's like 1.2 units per order, really almost one item in one box. And that's a different method of management and a distribution center than is a big box warehouse that might go to stores. You know, a lot of pallet work out of that facility, or at least casework, but the piece pick side makes it a hugely different environment.
You know, we're speaking to each other a little over a year since the Japanese earthquake and tsunami. Question, Do you think that companies have forgotten about that type of risk in their logistics strategies?
Unfortunately, we tend to be what I call fast forgetters in this world, and that is that you say, well, that's not going to probably happen again for a long time. Well, it may not. The difference being today, as I said before about those extended supply chains, is that it's so long and there's so many handoffs all the way from Asia to the United States and maybe even through the Panama Canal that the opportunity of an individual event is still low. But the opportunity, because it's such an extended length of haul, the probability that somewhere along there it's actually going to be higher, right? And so people have kind of forgotten about it a little bit and maybe gone off guard a little bit. But boy, as soon as another one happens again, it's gonna become top of mind to people again. But yes, I do think they tend to do that because, well, that was a year ago now, as you say, and they've got other things on their plate, and so that's gone away kind of a little bit.
You've touched on Panama Canal expansion a couple of times, but let's turn to that specifically. The impact that you see on distribution, what's it likely to be?
I think it will continue a trend to move product through the Panama Canal to the East Coast ports, and that trend really started back in 2002 when we had the longshoreman lockout on the West Coast. So most of the retailers in this country developed a 4 or 5 corner strategy. So they bring in product into the Seattle-Tacoma area, the Southern California area, maybe Houston like Walmart does in the East Coast, to minimize their risk of interruption of the supply chain. So today, the percentage of container traffic moving through West Coast ports is around 54%. It used to be in the 60s. And I expect, even between now and before the Panama Canal opens in 2015, that it will continually go down maybe a point or a point and a half on an annual basis, because 77% of the population lives in the eastern side of the United States.
Well, important information, very, very important information. Tim, I want to thank you for meeting with us today.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate the opportunity.
That's Tim Feemster. Newmark Grubb, Knight Frank, speaking with us today about the key issues that he sees affecting site selection. Well, thank you for watching.